This is Mark Fisher with Mark and the Millennials, and we have with us today the subject matter of the first Socialist Party in the United States in decades is certified. Pennsylvania registers 11,000 non-citizens to vote, and we have the dumbest bill in America. This is Mark Fisher with Mark and the Millennials, and we have with us two millennials, Andrew Fulginiti. How you doing today, Andrew?
Good, Mark.
And Ryan Brady, sometimes known as Squirrel.
Squirrel?
Squirrel.
I'm still recovering. I'm still recovering for the Super Bowl game. That was very boring.
That was really bad.
Droned.
So first discussion is this gentleman, Jerome Segal, in the state of Maryland. He's a former college professor at the University of Maryland, College Park. He has worked really hard to get lots of signatures, I think 10,000 signatures, to get the first Socialist Party certified in the United States in 4 decades. And Maryland will have a socialist candidate, if they choose one, on the 2020 ballot. And we actually interviewed this gentleman, which is pretty spectacular, the interview, because he wouldn't let anyone talk. He talked the entire time, and we kept trying to ask him questions, and he acted like we're at one of his lectures, like he kept saying, oh, no, you have to listen to me talk. Don't interrupt me. You can't interrupt me. And we're like, hey, we're just trying to ask you questions about socialism and what it's about. What do you guys think about this gentleman who has started this first socialist party in the state?
Yeah, so like you said, Mark, I felt like I was back in my college political philosophy class. I kind of had zoned out a little bit there, but yeah. So when I look back on the interview, I tried to find like a good takeaway or something that I found kind of interesting from his remarks. I mean, I thought it was interesting. You know, he said that he wasn't interested in implementing socialism to its full potential, I guess. He was interested in keeping a lot of the traditional institutions, but I think that one of the ones that stuck out for me was he talked about the American dream and what he thinks Americans are shifting what their view of the American dream is. And I'm not sure I agree with him, but he sounded like he cited some polling, and he thinks that people are more interested in more leisure in their lives, more social protections, which I guess maybe translates to entitlements. I'm not sure exactly.
Of course.
Yeah, so it's
more free stuff, basically, like
right.
AOC.
Exactly,
towards
exactly. Yeah, and then that maybe the America's less, I think his words were the pursuit of wealth and success, less interested in that. I think I'm not sure I just agree with any of that, to be honest. I don't think his view, that people's view of American dream is wealth and success. I think everyone's ideal of American dream is whatever your dream is, you can accomplish it through work. I think that's what American dream is.
Imagine that. You mean you actually have to work to get ahead?
Yeah, I think his idea that America's idea of the American dream is wealth and success is kind of what is the reason why a lot of people on the left are demonizing people that have wealth and success.
Yeah, it says in the article, Fox News article, it says, what is being described as the country's first new socialist party in 4 decades. The party, called Bread and Roses, yes, you heard that correctly, it's the country's first socialist party in decades. Bread and Roses is its name, identifies itself as an alternative to the two-party system, with the certification that alternatives can now be put on candidates who are alternatives can be put on local and state. That's a really poorly written article, I'm just saying. It says, with the certification, others can be put on the ballot who are part of the Bread and Roses party. So, Ryan, thoughts?
Well, during the interview, I propositioned to him about the theory about behind his party, if it was more of like a political exercise, or he actually thought it being an actual movement to becoming an actual real political party that actually had some weight behind it. And I think as I framed it as Professor Segal, as you see the Democratic Party moving more towards the far left, as more progressives are pulling the Democratic Party from its moderate-ish position to the farther left every year, it seems. Do you see more people defecting from the Democrat Party to the Bread and Roses Party, or starting more socialist parties in other states?
Yeah, I mean, they might be afraid of the name Bread and Roses. It says, Segal last year ran unsuccessfully as a socialist in the Democratic Party's primary against incumbent Senator Ben Cardin. He lost the primary, of course, the Democratic primary, but then he won certification from the State Board of Elections for his new effort, creating the Bread and Roses Party.
10,000 signatures to become a party, right?
10,000 signatures in the state of Maryland, yet it is the first Socialist Party of the United States in almost 4 decades, which is pretty extraordinary.
I think Democrats should be scared of someone like him, especially in the state. I think definitely he has the potential to steal Democrats that are on the farther left side, were Bernie supporters. I mean, Bernie, has all these socialist ideals. I think those people might be more inclined to actually register as, I guess, Bread and Roses party now in Maryland. So they should be concerned about that.
And to that point, we can see that on a national level with AOC and the Justice Democrats started almost fracturing the Democrat caucus in general, with the moderate Democrats saying, if I go this far left, I may not win re-election, especially the more vulnerable ones in the Dakotas and the Midwest states.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think on the national level, you see, the CEO of Starbucks that everyone's trying to victimize right now, especially the Democrats.
Schultz 2020. Let's
right,
do it.
Exactly.
Let's break it up.
So
Ross Perot this thing.
Yeah, exactly. The Democratic establishment, anybody that's going to somewhat could potentially fracture their party, they're trying to sideline them, make sure they stay in the party. We'll sideline you when we don't want to use you, and we'll go with our candidate.
And Americans are warming to socialism, right? So, I mean, if you look down a ballot, you saw Democrat, Republican, and Socialist, you might be, as a Democrat, since so many of them are becoming socialists, to go ahead and vote for the Socialists. The problem is it's going to be Republican, Democrat, and Bread and Roses.
Well, if they want more leisure and entitlements, then they will vote Bread and Roses.
But then it goes on, the thing is we want to provide equal opportunity for everybody, but equal opportunity is one thing, but then you also have equal compensation for equal amount of work. Not everyone's going to get the same compensation.
Yeah, and he talked about that a little bit, because I asked him in the interview, I said, well, don't you believe in the basic Marxist tenet that each person should work according to their ability and take according to their need? And he kind of talked around that subject for a solid 10, 15 minutes, maybe even 20 minutes. And then towards the end, he said, well, it is a lot like that, that thing that, Marx talked about, each person should work according to their ability and take according to their need. It's like, yeah, no kidding. I mean, that's exactly, but he was very cleverly trying to disguise what he was trying to teach us.
He meandered like a river.
I mean, can you imagine? This gentleman was a professor who retired from the University of Maryland, College Park. I mean, that's extraordinary. Any final thoughts on Mr. Segal of the Bread and Roses Party?
No, I think it was an interesting interview. Definitely took me back to college political philosophy days, but I think he had some good points. I think the Democratic Party has something to worry about. Not just in Maryland where Mr. Segal is, but across the country. We could see more of these parties popping up. I wouldn't be surprised if we do.
I agree completely.
Yep. Some of his thoughts had merits, but we have a difference of opinion of how to achieve those goals.
Well said. So the next subject, more than 11,000 non-citizens registered to vote in Pennsylvania. And this came to light. The Washington Times reported that a top Pennsylvania lawmaker called the state to immediately expunge the names of 11,198 non-citizens from the state who were confirmed illegally registered to vote. State Representative Darrell Metcalf, a Republican and former chairman of a House Government Oversight Panel, said the administration of Governor Tom Wolf, a Democrat, belatedly acknowledged the large number of non-citizens in communications over the past 2 months. I believe that we need to take action, he said, and have those people removed immediately from the rolls. Well, obviously that makes sense. But this is what I think maddens so many people across the United States about illegal immigration and the thought process that motor voter laws, where you go to register a vehicle, you can also register to vote. Andrew.
Yeah, I think this story right here is what happens when the emphasis is on registering as many people as possible to vote, and less about actually informing voters about the candidates and things like that. I mean, I agree that voting is a constitutional right. I think just like, with the American dream and the pursuit of happiness, it's incumbent upon the individual to vote if they want to vote. I don't think there should be huge emphasis on just registering people because they have to, because it's their right. I think if lazy people don't want to vote and there are people that want to be uninformed and don't really care, then it's probably better for the system.
And the Motor Voter Act was signed by Bill Clinton in 1993 and expanded exponentially by Democrat lawmakers across the United States since it went into effect in 1995. And furthermore, the Texas Attorney General announced a voter fraud alert and confirmed Texas found nearly 100,000 non-citizens registered to vote. Brady.
So, correct me if I'm wrong. So, basically, when you get a driver's license, right? If you're not a citizen, a civilian, and you get a driver's license, you're allowed to vote. Is that my understanding?
If you're not a citizen, you're allowed to vote?
Yeah.
No.
So people are civilians being enabled to vote regardless.
I'm not following you there.
I'm not.
Yeah.
Squirrel.
So
that's why we call
I
it
was trying to
squirrel.
go on the whole
Restate
like
that, yeah.
citizen and civilian dynamic. So
Okay.
they're finding non-citizens, aka civilians, on the voter rolls. Mm-hmm. So illegal immigrants.
They're going to your local motor vehicle administration. And of course, depending on which state you're in, they call it different things. They walk in, they try to register a vehicle, they register the vehicle, they try to get a license, and of course they say, well, would you like to register to vote? And naturally, they're not going to say no, because if they do say no, the thought process is, well, maybe they're not supposed to be here. Maybe they're because
I think that what's increasing it too is that a lot of places that I don't know how many states do this, but there's states now that instead of asking you if you want to vote, they just automatically register you to vote, and you have to opt out of it. So it's like they don't even ask the person who may or may not be a citizen; they just register them.
exactly. Brady.
Yeah, so we have a flavor of that in the in Maryland. So when you enroll your driver's license, you get automatically rolled in, say which party you're a part of, and then before you know it, you get voter registration in your mail.
And of course, all we keep hearing across the country is, oh, no, there's no such thing as voter fraud. Of course, it's only the voter fraud that occurs when the Russians try to co-opt an election and steal it, but there's no voter fraud with respect to the millions of people coming across the border who come here, then who ultimately, many of whom find themselves on the voter rolls and vote, right?
Yeah, well, it's only voter fraud if they vote for the candidate you don't support, right?
And meanwhile, we keep expanding. The Democratic lawmakers in the 50 states keep trying to expand these rights to vote for people that aren't even here legally present. I mean, they're not legally present. So how can that be possible? I just don't know. Brady, final thoughts on this?
Citizens are allowed to vote. If you're not a citizen, you can't vote.
Okay.
Yeah,
I don't know how blunt I can be on that.
My last thought is the emphasis too heavily on registering people to vote and not so much on the protection of the right to vote. If who's protecting who should be allowed to vote, it's more on as many votes as possible is better.
So millennials are okay with this, right? Millennials think that there are certain rights and responsibilities of a citizen that should not be extended to the rest of the world.
I might be in the minority, but the more liberal-leaning millennials think that if they're part of the community, they should be allowed to vote in their local, state, municipal, and even federal elect because they're here, they're part of the community. But are they actually, they're benefiting maybe the local economy per se, but are they paying federal taxes? They're not really necessarily could be assimilating because we always can go back to the Tom Brokaw thing.
Right. I didn't know I was in the minority as a millennial. I've always, ever since I've been allowed to vote, I voted, and I just thought that was like maybe it's just my family how I was raised. But once I saw polling when they say like millennials don't vote, it's like such a small margin. I started asking people, and a large majority of my friends do not vote. It's
I
just
think
they
I
could
missed
care
2
less.
primaries, but I haven't missed any generals.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, you guys are the exception to the rule with that because I agree. We've done some research and found the same thing. Very few millennials, but when they do start voting, they're going to be a powerful force. There's no doubt about it.
Oh, yeah.
So next subject, Governor Ralph Northam of Virginia implodes. He and I just want to start. I want to set up this clip that we have of Ralph Northam. He was asked, of course, many questions about some inappropriate pictures that were in his yearbook. And one of the questions was about whether he ever dressed in blackface. And I mean, this is a serious matter, obviously, because it's hard. Because I thought as a country we got past this, and this did not happen that long ago, just a few decades ago. And they asked him about the moonwalk, whether he ever dressed in blackface, and he said something like he had done so and acted like he was Michael Jackson. And someone said, well, do you know how to do the moonwalk? Do you have that clip? Let's go to that.
And you said that the competition in San Antonio was dance.
Yes,
And you danced the moonwalk.
that's right.
Are you still able to moonwalk?
My wife says inappropriate circumstances.
So in that clip, you heard correctly. He actually considered doing the moonwalk that second. And for a split second, he looked over his wife, and his wife's like, don't you even think of doing this right now.
He literally looked for room in where they were sitting to see if he could actually have space to do a moonwalk.
He did.
Lacking some political awareness, are we?
He did. And to set up the story, of course, as many people know by now, the governor of Virginia was accused of having dressed in blackface, and then the accusations, well, it kind of sort of looks like it because there's a picture of him in his medical school yearbook. Is that what it is? And in the medical school yearbook, there are a number of pictures. One in particular is very disturbing, and it's one individual in blackface, and another individual in a KKK outfit. And according to Northam, he initially said, well, he thinks that's inappropriate and he should not have been in the picture. And then he came back and said, well, he changed his mind and said, well, I don't really think that's me in the picture. But, oh, by the way, people did call me back in the day Coon Man, which, of course, is an incredibly derogatory statement for folks who are African American in the United States. And so none of his explanations jive, of course, with what we're actually seeing on paper. Andrew.
Yeah, so I don't know whether you believe in karma or divine providence. It's working. This guy has had a rough week plus here. So from this picture where we don't know what the truth is, he's clearly not being forthcoming with what it is. Regardless, I think we all agree that if he was one of those two, it was probably not a good idea, especially if he was the individual dressed in the KKK regalia. But for a guy that just prior to this news story breaking, he was under fire for a whole separate issue. I mean, right? This abortion bill that the state of Virginia was trying to pass, where he defended it, and basically the bill had no restrictions on it. It was saying that you could literally kill a baby in the birth canal of a woman if they chose to. And he defended this bill. So, like I said, karma or divine providence, it's working against him.
Then he retracted and said, that was taken out of context, too.
And interestingly enough, if you read some of these articles about this story, about all of these stories, about his dressing in blackface and acting like Michael Jackson, and about his abortion comments, apparently some childhood friends from the Virginia Eastern Shore, people that he grew up with, heard his statement about abortion, and they then turned in these pictures to the media because they were so disgusted with their friend that they thought was someone who was pro-life actually would come out and say, oh no, it's totally okay to kill a human being, including when they're being born.
That correlation makes a lot of sense of the way the timing of all these events have transpired. I never really thought that could have been 2 and 2. That's actually really impressive if that becomes true.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's been reported in a number of different sources.
Yeah, I think the Washington Post actually reported that. The Washington Post had an article, and they reported the exact same thing.
This would be the one time I believe the Washington Post.
Right, yeah, exactly.
They have good job board advice.
So is he going to resign? Do you guys think the governor is going to resign? What's the thought process?
It seems like he's
going to be worn down,
I think. I think it depends on how much pressure is kept up, if this fades away, or if the pressure just intensifies.
But can he govern, though, anymore? It's like a ship without a captain. The crew's not going to listen to him, especially during the major Virginia session during crossover. He can't do a lot of his initiatives because no one's like, nope, we're not going to mess with you. He lost the Black Caucus in the Virginia Senate and the legislature, so I don't know.
How about the millennial opinion? Should he resign?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I agree too. The boomer opinion is he's going nowhere. I mean, his political career has ended. He has completely lied about whether or not he's in this picture. And let's face it, folks. The governor of Virginia would never have this picture in his yearbook, which was all about him in front of a Jaguar, a picture of him, Mr. Country Guy and all that stuff, and then also in blackface next to someone in a KKK outfit, which could also be him. Mm-hmm. He would never have that there unless he endorsed it.
And talking about another time where he went sort of blackface as Michael Jackson at a dance competition.
Exactly. Well said. So in our next subject, we have now the dumbest bill in America.
It's time for the moment you've been waiting for.
The dumbest bill in America.
Thank you, Adam Coutura, our tech person here at Mark and the Millennials. So, no, that was not Squirrel, by the way, singing, but it did sound a little bit like him. So get this, folks. In Idaho, cannibalism is strictly prohibited and punishable by up to 14 years in prison, except under life-threatening conditions as the only apparent means of survival. So I'm having a hard time understanding that why there needs to be a bill, but I'm going to read from this. It says, Cannibalism, Title 18, Crimes and Punishments, Chapter 50, mayhem. Cannibalism defined, punishment. Any person who willfully ingests the flesh or blood of a human being is guilty of cannibalism. It shall be an affirmative defense to a violation of the provisions of this section that the action was taken under extreme life-threatening conditions as the only apparent means of survival. Cannibalism is punishable by imprisonment in the state prison not exceeding 14 years. And so, gentlemen, what do you think about this? Fuji.
Well, my thought is, all right, cannibalism. So there's only two scenarios I can imagine where you would come to that, right? It's survival situation or you're committing a crime, right? So survival situation, it's in the bill. You can do it, I guess, if those circumstances arise and they deem so. Okay, it's covered. Get it, got it. But if it's the other scenario, we're actually eating someone for not survival purposes, I feel like there's got to be a series of felonies that you're probably already broken to get to that stage. Like, I'd say maybe murder, kidnap, some sort of violence. I mean, it seems like you'd already have broken more serious laws to get to that point. So it's kind of hilarious.
So what you're saying is that we probably really don't need a bill to tell people, hey, if you're hungry, you really shouldn't eat the other person when there's no other food around?
Right, exactly, yeah.
Except in certain circumstances.
Right. Yes, I was looking up, I was trying to find some information on this, and I found there's a Representative Randy Armstrong. He's from part of the Idaho legislature, and he wrote in the Idaho State Journal. He basically set up our segment here, and he says, now before you all go all Donner Party picnic on me, let me explain a few things. To arrive at this moment, I was pondering on government. Have any of you ever been frustrated by similarly strange laws or impediments imposed by some nefarious government agency? Don't laws sometimes feel a bit arbitrary or hatched up just to impede your personal progress? I mean, he couldn't set it up more perfectly.
Brady, thoughts?
I think Andrew framed it perfectly. The only thing I could think of, Times of Survival, Donner Party, which already just got mentioned, and that soccer team that crashed in the Andes, I think.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like
90s
Argentina or something.
Yeah, something like that. And then for the criminal part is Florida a few years ago, the guy with bath salts that ate the dude's face.
Oof. Yeah.
I think felony laws in the books cover a lot of these aggressive acts and in times of crisis and time of need. I don't know if we need this bill.
And the reason we do these dumbest bills in America is because here's a great example of one of the dumbest bills in America. The idea that you're in this horrible situation, there's no food, you're freezing, people around you are dying, and you have to actually pull out the law. Do you really think people are going to do that? Are they going to pull out the law and go, I need to read this law. Remember when it was passed way back in the day in Idaho, and since, this is where we're stuck, I'm going to make doubly sure that I'm not going to break the law.
Measurement of life and death circumstance. Oh, I survived. Oh, wait, well, I'm getting arrested for 14 years. All right, great.
Before we move on from this segment, I just wanted to share one more piece from the Randy Armstrong piece in the Idaho Journal. I thought it was too funny. I was like, I have to share this, guys. So he says, according to him, the only person ever prosecuted for cannibalism in the United States was a guy named Alfred Packer. Apparently, this guy ate 5 of his friends in Colorado. Oh. And the representative says, legend has it. Now, who knows if I haven't fact checking on this, but legend has it. The judge who sentenced this guy says, and quote, stand up, you voracious man-eating son of a bitch, stand up. There was 7 Democrats in Hinsdale County, and you up and ate 5 of them, damn you.
That's a hell of a potluck.
I really want that to be true. It's just a legend, but I want that to be true, because that's hilarious.
So this bill was introduced for partisan reasons.
Right, exactly.
Well, maybe we should have them meet the Bread and Roses party,
Right.
Because it is about food over there, apparently. So,
yeah.
So the idea, of course, when we talk about the dumbest bill in America, it's because do we really need so many bills? And here's an example where do we really need a bill to tell us how we need to live our lives in extreme circumstances? No, because it's just common sense. We don't need these bills. And so I'm sure it's already illegal to eat another person, to kill another person and eat them. I'm sure that's already in the books because it's called murder. But no, this is trying to carve out an exception as if, you wouldn't be given an exception in court. That's just, the whole thing's ridiculous. So our next subject, technology. We're going to talk about technology during these segments. Just, during these podcasts, we're going to try to do one segment on technology. And on this particular podcast, we have an autonomous robot which delivers food and snacks to college students. George Mason University is testing these out. It's a private company that's come into the university, and they're delivering snacks and food and so forth to the dorms. And these little robots, kind of like little R2D2 things, are traveling all over the campus and delivering various things to the students. I presume maybe books and supplies as well. I mean, I guess that's possible. What do you guys think about this idea of the world with robots?
I've seen robots that deliver certainly tools or medical supplies in the hospitals underneath the sub-basements. If you're in the medical field, you actually see these robots go in the hallways, mind their own business. They're sensory aware. They know where to go, and they know when to deliver and when to restock themselves. It's a great technology. It makes things more efficient and more effective, getting to point A to point B to provide somebody what they need at the right moment. Seeing it at a college campus,
would people steal them? I mean, it seems like people would steal them.
I think some ingenious college kid would probably use it for other nefarious means.
Oh, sure, delivering beer and yeah.
I think my first reaction is this is awesome, right? This is super cool. Tech is so cool, especially like this. I mean, I know Google, Amazon, Domino's Pizza, and a couple other places are already looking at, deliveries,
drone
technology, not even as air-based versus land-based. But I think this is awesome, first reaction. But then, you start thinking about it a little bit more until, these things start showing up, where you live, and you're like, well, what could be the downsides of this? I would say a word of advice for college students ordering this, try and walk. As much as possible. Freshman 15 is a real thing. You may never lose it, so don't get too comfortable with this, ordering beer. Maybe just walk to the liquor store or the pizza shop just every now and then. Don't always use it.
That's good advice. And look, guys, the reason we're going to talk about the idea of robots and technology and so forth is because I think it's so important about the progress that we're making on the one hand, but also the concerns over what autonomous systems will do to jobs. Right? It could put people out of work, and it could also make life better in some situations, or it could do both simultaneously. So we're going to talk about this at all of our podcasts, and we do have a funny Progressive Insurance commercial about technology that is taken to the nth degree, and here it is.
Computer, order pizza.
Of course, Daniel.
Fridge, weather.
Clear skies in 75.
Trash can, turn on the TV.
My pleasure.
Ice dispenser, find me a dog sitter.
Okay.
And make ice.
Pizza delivered.
What's happened to my son?
I think that's just what people are like now. I mean, with Progressive, you can quote your insurance on just about any device, even on social media. It'll be fine.
Willie?
I don't know.
I love that. That's awesome.
That's awesome.
That is what is known as the Internet of Things, IoT.
Right, exactly, yeah.
So what else? Any other thoughts in the technology field? I mean, you guys are both in the technology space. I mean, so many millennials are. I mean, what should we be thinking about?
All those things are hackable. People are designing for efficiency. They're not building the security from the ground up. They're bolting it on after the fact, after a breach or somebody's sensitive data gets spied on.
Yeah, I think like I said, my initial reaction to the story is that most people's are with technology. It's like, that's such a cool thing. I gotta have it, and then they get it in their home, and then things start happening. Like, devices start getting hacked. Your computers, Amazon, and Google devices that do all the voice commands. It's like, it's all so cool, and then bad things start happening. So people are starting to catch on to it at a little bit, but I think with the continued advancement, it's going to be a bigger problem.
And this leads us to the exact same idea, what you're talking about, hacking. A family's Nest, which is a security system, it's a security camera, warned of a nuclear attack after being hacked. Basically what happened was a family has a Nest security system, and they're in San Francisco, and suddenly they got this alert that the United States was being attacked in various cities by North Korea, and that nuclear arms were heading their way. And so the young woman who lives in the home walked over to her TV thinking, this is really serious, because it was a really well done warning system, and her TV was off. So she's like, where's this coming from? She walks over to her Nest system, her security system that was put into her house, and it was coming from the Nest system. And it was later found out that Nest had a massive breach of security that they didn't necessarily tell everybody about. And somebody, of course, a hacker, was obviously making a joke. Not, it could be really serious too. But what do you guys think about this?
Yeah, I think this is the inherent risk that we run by allowing these devices to take over certain aspects of our lives. All these smart homes, things that can voice commands that can control your lights, TV, everything. All of that is connected right to the internet, like Ryan said, the Internet of Things, and all hackable, right?
And people are listening.
Yeah. 24/7. Yeah, exactly.
Others are listening. If it's being monitored, that means someone's listening, right?
Bringing
Ryan?
Alexa into home, your Siri, or your Bixby if you have a Samsung. And then on top of that, not too long ago, you had cars being shown how they could be hacked because they had Bluetooth and they had Wi-Fi, and people could turn off people's brakes, their engine when they're going 80 down the highway. And there's a lot of room for a lot of bad happening.
And not even is it just some. I mean, the biggest concern definitely is probably the hacking, but sometimes there's just glitches with these devices. I mean, I think Apple not too long ago. I don't know if it's fixed or not, but Apple came out saying that there was an issue with their FaceTime feature.
Yep.
So if you've heard about this, basically, if you have an Apple iPhone or device that has the FaceTime app, someone could potentially call you because of this glitch. Someone could call you via FaceTime. You would not be notified, but the app would open up. Your camera and your speakers are on, so the person is watching you and hearing you. You have no idea that someone's looking through your phone right there. And that was a glitch, right? That was something that's wrong with their software, and people started reporting it because friends were probably like, "Hey, I'm watching, and you have no idea." So that's part of it as well.
Well, in this technological world that's ever connected now, especially in the global way, your expectations of privacy when you're dealing with this tech and using this tech and bringing it to your home, the expectation of privacy is very low, and you should understand that. And if you are affronted by that, understand, cut the cord, go in the woods.
Absolutely. And Brady is a cybersecurity expert, by the way, so he knows a lot about this. So we're going to talk about this subject. We're going to put one item about technology and the concerns and also the great idea of technology in every single podcast. We're going to add that from this point forward. But that's it for today. I want to thank basically Andrew Fujiniti and Ryan Brady. I also want to thank Adam Couture, who's our tech guy. This is Mark Fisher with Mark and the Millennials. We will catch you next time. Thank you for listening.